The big exam. It was coming closer and closer to Jack's 13th birthday, a day which once was of celebration, the becoming of a teenager, the best and worst years of one's life. The day walked hand in hand with the national exam. Jack's parents never spoke of the exam. No one spoke of the exam. Jack, who was naturally curious, asked about the exam as he knew it was coming up on his birthday. As a family, they never spoke or had spoken of the exam, so Jack pressured his parents with questions about the exam. Dad, what kind of questions will this exam have? Like, will it have math in it or questions about science? His dad paused and looked blankly towards his mother, who turned away to do the dishes from the warm meal they had just eaten. He cautiously replied, pausing to make sure he said the right words. Jack, the exam is just a standardized test, but the government requires you to take when you turn 13. Your mother took it. I took it. There is no need to worry about it. Don't stress about it. Jack could see the contours of his father's face shift as he clearly lied about the last part of the statement. Although he did try hard to conceal it with a stern poker face, Jack, you see, was no ordinary boy. He was a genius. He could read his parents like books and could answer any question anyone could ask in their right mind. The exam was in 3 days. 72 hours, 4,320 minutes, 259,200 seconds. Jack thought to himself as he wandered around his room, looking for the dull gray carpet to his tiny bed, which he would trade with no one, for it was his bed. That night, Jack snuck out of his room in the late night, like he did every other day, to do something he wasn't meant to. He had to be careful. The current curfews in place meant severe punishments for those who dare broke them. As he walked through the empty street in the night, the light from the new moon glittered beautifully off the wet tarmac. The street lamps, which no longer functioned, just cast shadows on the empty roads. The dead city which once never slept. Jack sometimes felt like he would be better off on his way. It was around 2 a.m. as Jack wandering along his usual routine down the city's alleyways, trying his best not to get caught by the light patrol, thought about the exam and what he had heard from his friends and the rumors of children disappearing for further testing. He had asked his parents about his, but they and everybody else just kept insisting that the rumors were fake and that the test was really just a normal thing, not to be feared. They said it was to help create a demographic view of the country in terms of intelligence. Jack bought none of it. He wanted nothing to do with his country or its government. And he wanted nothing at all to do with the exam. He may be just turning 13, but Jack knew he was no ordinary child, simply in the sense that he could see the lies the government was feeding the people. And he knew that there was something missing from his world. He just didn't know where it was. He needed to somehow flunk the exam and keep his ideas and views shut. And most importantly, avoid this unknown, unspoken further testing. As Jack wandering around, thinking about what the possible further testing could be, he thought to himself, how do I flunk a test in which you can't lie? How can I lie but tell the truth without them knowing? As he pondered this question to himself, he must have strayed off this road and into a main road. He quickly jumped back into the alleyway. Fortunately, he felt like he had gone unnoticed. Once out of danger, his eyes looked away from the road and up to the sky. He lost himself in the beauty of the new moon and the stars above. Nights like this were the best. He could roam freely as he pleased and do just what he wanted, though the important part was being cautious enough and making sure to go unnoticed. The sun was dawning upon the new day, and Jack knew he had to be home soon if his disappearance was to go unnoticed, especially by his overbearing parents, so he quickly and quietly made his way home. He was a good 10 minutes from away from home, where he would lie sound asleep, only to be woken later by his father. However, just as he was crossing the intersection to the road which his house was on, he heard a scuffling noise behind him. The first thought which flashed through his mind was, what if I didn't go unnoticed and they were just stalking me, waiting to take me away at the right time? Jack then began to sprint for his life, like anyone would in his situation. Fortunately, he was not the most athletic person and soon had to stop and take a breather. The chilly air was like needles in his throat, as warm sweat trickled down from his hair onto his cold cheeks and down his spine, creating an uncomfortable feeling. Stuck in the moment, he looked back and realized that no one was chasing him. It must have been a stray animal looking for trash or something. Well, at least that was what he hoped as he made his way into his house, out of breath and shaken from the sudden fright. He didn't have any idea what close encounter he had just experienced. That same morning, as usual, Jack's father woke him up painfully early, and just like every usual morning, Jack wrestled himself out of bed, fighting the overwhelming power of when sleep commands the body. He spent his day like he usually did. Dad drove him to school. He spent his day in class listening to a history teacher go on and on about nonsensical things which they were told to say and teach, although they seemed very unlikely and improbable. There were no other truths in this country, no other way to prove those teachers wrong. It was around 1 a.m. when Jack decided it was time to sneak out again. He wanted to enjoy his day before the exam, which was to be the next day. He went about his usual path as always, but something felt off that night. It was unusually silent, like there was the presence of someone or something over the night. He wandered the alleyways, aimlessly getting himself lost more than usual throughout the night. Jack was very careful to avoid the main intersections and possible patrol areas due to the insecurities created from previous night's events. He wandered and wandered past closed shopping centers, grocery stores, government buildings, and before he was completely lost in the silent night, he decided to make his way home through the winding streets in which he had wandered before. He knew the city like the back of his hand. Every nook and every cranny was something familiar to Jack. Pretty soon Jack was almost home. When a chilly feeling went down his spine, he stopped, paused, and looked around. This was the road in which he had had the close encounter with the patrols. A nervous feeling came upon him, driving him to speed up and return home and get to the safety of his warm covers. As he changed and went into his bed, he fell right into a state of thought about tomorrow's exam. He wasn't sure about what he would do to pass the exam and avoid further examination, and it was undecided about taking the exam at all. He had never felt less decided. But sleep got the better of him. So he set his alarm for 1 hour before normal wake-up time in order to properly decide. The act of doing this just made him realize how exhausted he was. He could no longer fight his heavy eyelids. But just as he was getting to sleep, his window, which faced the sky, went dark. Something had blocked the moonlight, only for a brief second or two. Jack, who was tired and drowsy, thought nothing of it. Maybe it was a tree swaying in the wind. Jack then fell into a deep, uninterrupted sleep. The day for the exam dawned upon all the children turning 13. The day would determine their futures, the class in which they would be put in terms of work, and whether or not they would proceed for further examination. Jack's dad burst into his room at exactly 7:15 a.m. in anticipation to get to the examiners early and get in and out as fast as possible. He looked around and Jack was gone. He had disappeared without trace.